On the day I was killed, my husband was with his first love. They embraced and kissed, rekindled their old romance, and got married in a hurry after I died. For 10 years. Only the detective captain in charge of the case could not sleep day or night. After successfully apprehending the suspect, he gave an interview and remained silent for a long time. The victim, she was the person I loved most. The media was in an uproar. When I woke up again, I was back in my 20s. He's still the aloof heartthrob of the People's Public Security University. I was caught by him while climbing over the wall. What do you do? I jumped. I'm here to confess my feelings. Sun Yen, wake up. You're going to be late for your date. When my roommate shook me awake, my mind was filled with images of Jiang Xuanye giving an interview. Song Yongkang has called you several times. I was taken aback. It seems like I was 20 when I went on my first date with Song Yongkang. The phone rang again. It's Song Yongkang. Sun Yen, what have you been up to? You didn't answer your phone. I thought you dropped dead. I felt a sudden jolt of nervousness. The memory of the blade slicing through my throat feels as fresh as yesterday. Why aren't you saying anything? Have you gone mute? He's always been rude to me. If he hadn't just broken up with his first love, I never would have had the chance to go out with him. Back then, I was still madly in love with my childhood sweetheart, whom I'd had a crush on since we were kids. I humbled myself as much as possible, went out of my way to please him, and persevered until we got married. I thought I had finally made it, but on the day I was brutally murdered on the street, he rekindled his romance with his first love and quickly remarried shortly after my death. Seeing that I still hadn't answered, Song Yongkang gave a cold laugh and hung up. I let out a cold laugh. If I were to live my life over again, I would certainly not repeat the same mistakes. I had just lain down when I jolted upright. Back then, it was through my dates with Song Yongkang that I had the chance to meet his classmate, Jiang Xuanye, who was also studying at the People's Public Security University. If I don't go to the meeting now, won't I lose my chance to even meet Jiang Xuanye? In my past life, Jiang Xuanye was the only one who truly loved me. I can't miss out on this again. I immediately got up and left our medical school, jogging over to the Public Security University next door. The People's Public Security University of China is under a closed campus policy. Visitors must be accompanied by a student to enter the campus. I called Song Yongkang several times, but he didn't answer any of them. If I miss this chance, I don't know when I'll ever get to meet Jiang Xuanye. I was wandering outside the wall when I looked up and saw a set of iron railings. It was lower here than anywhere else. So without giving it a second thought, I rolled up my sleeves and started climbing. Just as I was about to jump down from the wall, I suddenly heard a sharp shout from behind me. What do you do? I jumped and turned around. Standing behind him were several tall boys in black t-shirts with crew cuts. The one in the lead had a high, straight nose and piercing eyes, and he was staring intently at me. My breath caught in my throat. In a past life, after successfully apprehending a criminal, he stood before the cameras in his police uniform, remaining silent for a long time. He's only in his 30s, yet his hair is already turning gray. Finally, he opened his mouth and said something that took everyone by surprise. The victim, she was the person I loved most. And right now, he was looking at me. His brow furrowed. I jumped down from the wall and, under his gaze, felt so nervous I didn't know what to do. In a moment of impulse, I actually blurted out what I was thinking. I'm here to confess my feelings. No sooner had he finished speaking than a few boys behind him burst out laughing. Who should I confess my feelings to? She looks familiar. Isn't she Song Yongkang's childhood friend's younger sister? Oh my. I knew it. My sweetheart. Quiet. Jiang Xuanye interrupted them, turning his head toward me. Come with me to the security office to explain. He turned to look at me. I'm here to tell you how I feel. Everyone in the room fell silent for a few seconds. Then everything went haywire. But in the end, I was taken to the security office, because a teacher on patrol saw me. Explain exactly how you got in and why you came in. The teacher dressed in a police uniform, looked at me with a stern expression. "I'm sorry, teacher. I was so nervous I couldn't get the words out for ages." The teacher frowned. "Which school are you from? What's your ID number? I'll contact your school." Jiang Xuanye, who had been standing at the door the whole time, pushed it open and walked in. "Teacher, this is my friend. He came in without permission because he couldn't get in touch with me. I apologize for the trouble this has caused the school, and I'll accept whatever punishment is given." He took all the blame. I hurriedly denied it. "No, it was me." Jiang Xuanye reached out with his long arm and pushed me aside. The teacher's gaze shifted between the two of us. "Jiang Xuanye, you're one of our top students here at the police university. Even if you're in a relationship, you need to learn how to handle your personal life." He didn't rush to deny it. "Got it. Go back to your captain and write a self-criticism." "Okay." After saying that, the teacher turned away to drink some tea, and Jiang Xuanye grabbed the back of my neck and hurried off. He didn't let go until they had stepped out of the school gates. When I saw him turn to leave, I quickly grabbed his arm. He looked down at me. His brow furrowed. "If you keep holding on to me, you'll have to explain yourself to security." I let go immediately. "Jiang Xuanye, I'm here too." "I refuse." I was taken aback. "First, I don't know you. Second, we have nothing in common. Third," he paused for a moment, "when it comes to someone I like, I wouldn't make her be the one to confess her feelings." With that, he turned and walked away. I stood there frozen. He's right, we're nothing more than strangers to each other now. I suddenly recalled all sorts of things from my past life. Her interactions with Jiang Xuanye were all intertwined with her emotional entanglement with Song Yongkong. Back then, my impression of him was that of a taciturn, stern, and unsmiling rough-and-tumble guy. Compared to Song Yongkong's slender, lean build, he was muscular and tall, with dark skin yet a penchant for black clothing. Later, he joined the Criminal Investigation Division with Song Yongkong and became Song Yongkong's captain. Even then, we were still merely acquaintances. The turning point came during a hospital stay when I was caring for a family member. At that time, I was already working at the hospital, and it just so happened that Jiang Xuanye had been injured on the job and was hospitalized there. In order to ensure that Song Yongkong's superior would look out for him, I went every day to bring him meals I had prepared myself, taking a keen interest in the progress of his recovery. Later, I started staying behind to chat with him. For 2 months straight, come rain or shine. Back then, my heart and mind were completely consumed by Song Yongkong. I paid no attention to anyone else of the opposite sex, so naturally I had no idea that these affectionate gestures had touched Captain Jiang, who was just beginning to discover romance. But before long, I told him, "I like Song Yongkong. All I want in this life is for him to return my feelings." He was silent for a long time. "If there's a girl I like, I would never make her be the one to confess her feelings." I didn't notice the gloom in his eyes. All I knew was that from then on, whenever Song Yongkong treated me badly, he would step in to reprimand him, without the slightest concern for whether his actions were out of line. I thought he considered me a friend, but on the day of my wedding to Song Yongkong, he didn't show up, until I was brutally murdered on the street. My husband, also a detective, reignited his romance with his first love and even quit his job as a police officer just to travel the world with her. Only Jiang Xuanye lost sleep over it day and night. He found commonalities among the other cases, consolidated them into a single investigation, and ultimately succeeded in apprehending the culprit. My soul has been wandering the world for 10 years. My last memory is of Jiang Xuanye expressing his feelings for me during an interview. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at 20. There was still time for everything. But now that I'm in such a hurry to tell him how I feel, it's backfired. IV ended up making things worse. That night, as I lay in bed tossing and turning, Song Yongkong called again. "Sun Yan, I've had a few too many at the karaoke bar. Can you come pick me up?" His voice was weak and pitiful, a far cry from his harsh demeanor earlier that day. I froze. suddenly recalling a similar incident from my past life. He tricked me into thinking he was drunk and asked me to pick him up. I was frantic with worry, so I hopped in a taxi in my pajamas, only to find him perfectly fine, grinning at the person next to him and saying, "See, I told you I'd be there whenever you called." I stood in the doorway, like a dog on display, with no dignity whatsoever. But why did this manipulation happen so early? Just as I was wondering about that, I suddenly heard someone shouting on the other end of the line. She even confessed her feelings to Brother Jiang today. If she keeps making Song Yongkang available whenever she wants, isn't that a slap in the face to our Brother Jiang? Don't you agree, Brother Jiang? My heart skipped a beat. Is Jiang Xuanye there too? The words of refusal lingered on the tip of my tongue, but I curled the corners of my mouth upward. Sure, I'll be right back. Song Yongkang's voice rose noticeably. Okay. After hanging up, I dialed a number from memory. Hello. A deep male voice said. I'm the girl who confessed her feelings to you today. My name is Sun Yen. Before he could answer, I continued. Now that you know who I am, we're going to start crossing paths. Are you drunk right now? What? I can even picture Jiang Xuanye frowning right now. I smiled. Have another drink. I'll come pick you up right now. I hung up the phone, didn't even change my clothes, and hailed a cab to head to the KTV, following the location Song Yongkang had sent me. I stopped in front of a private room, took a deep breath, and pushed the door open. The noisy crowd fell silent in an instant, and then someone burst out laughing. Less than half an hour, Brother Song. You're amazing. I'll take the loss. Wow. You really are always there when I need you. The way they looked at me was full of mockery and contempt, just like in my past life. The difference was that in the dark corner of the private room, a figure sat upright, holding a glass of wine the entire time. I picked up a bottle of liquor and walked over to Song Yongkang with a blank expression on my face. His expression changed. Sun Yen, what are you doing? You're lying to me. He snorted. I didn't force you, you came here on your own. He looked down at the bottle in my hand. What? Are you trying to get even? It was consensual, though we really have to make such a scene out of it. I smiled and slowly set the bottle down. After all, I was just trying to scare him. Song Yongkang, don't get any ideas. I'm here to pick someone else up. His expression turned stern, and he said mockingly, everyone here is my friend. Which one of them do you know? It's fine to save face, but if you're going to make threats, at least do it with some skill. Don't make a fool of yourself. Everyone burst out laughing. Just then, the figure in the darkness stood up. The private room fell silent instantly, and someone whispered, Brother Jiang. He slowly walked over to me, lifted his eyelids to glance at Song Yongkang, and then turned to me. Let's go. The moment the door to the private room closed, I heard the sound of a bottle shattering, along with the voices of the others trying to hold Song Yongkang back and calm him down. I followed Jiang Xuanye out of the KTV. Autumn has arrived in this northern city. It has just rained, and a gentle night breeze carries a chill. I instinctively shrank my shoulders. As they reached a crossroads, the figure ahead suddenly stopped. I almost ran into it. Under the streetlight, Jiang Xuanye looked down at me. His eyes and brows were shrouded in shadow, making them seem especially deep. Sun Yen. Huh. That bothers me. I was taken aback for a moment, but I quickly understood what he meant. He doesn't like it when I'm too forward. A sense of frustration washed over me. Even after being reborn, when it comes to matters of the heart, I still lack self-control. I let my emotions get the better of me, act without thinking, and do things that others consider out of line. After saying that, Jiang Xuanye shoved his hands in his pockets and strode forward. But since our schools were right next to each other and there was only one way back, I had no choice but to grit my teeth and follow behind him, keeping a good distance. As I approached the entrance to an alley, someone suddenly darted out and bumped into me so hard that I almost fell to the ground. But without even offering an apology, he hurriedly left. How come you? A familiar scent wafted into my nostrils. and I froze in my tracks. It was the unique scent of temple incense mingled with the scent of wild grass after the rain. In a past life. The man who carried the scent dragged me into a dark alley on a rainy night. He stood behind me, pressed a knife against my throat, and said in a sinister voice, "You're in the way." I suddenly came to my senses. But the person was already gone. I glanced at the dark alley beside me. It was pitch black and endless. I couldn't see a thing. Fear crept up my spine, spreading inch by inch to the top of my head, sending waves of tingling through me. I ran toward Jiang Xuanye and grabbed him by the arm. Jiang Xuanye, as if he had exhausted his last ounce of patience. He frowned and looked at her. "What exactly do you want?" Perhaps my expression was twisted with fear. Jiang Xuanye paused for a moment. I dragged him toward the dark alley. "Something's happened over there. Did you see that?" I didn't see it. But something must have happened. Jiang Xuanye grabbed me and pulled me back, bringing us to a stop. "Sun Yan, it's pointless to keep me here with an excuse like that." I shook my head frantically, my eyes reddening. "Trust me, I swear. If not, I'll never bother you again." He was clearly wavering. He hesitated for a moment, but eventually walked over with me. Stepping into the pitch-black alley, I saw potholes everywhere filled with rainwater. By the light of our cell phones, we inched forward. Apart from the moss-covered brick walls on either side, there seemed to be nothing else. Am I wrong? I looked up at Jiang Xuanye, but his expression had grown even more serious. "Why don't we go back?" I asked. He suddenly set off, walking toward the far end of the alley. It turns out there was a hidden path there after all, and in the very depths lay a woman, her body drenched in blood. I rushed over and felt her carotid artery. There is still a glimmer of hope. There was a wound on his chest that was gushing blood. "She's still alive. Call an ambulance." After saying that, I took off my jacket, pressed it against her wound, and applied some first aid to stop the bleeding. Soon, the sound of sirens pierced the night sky. The injured woman was taken to the hospital, where she was treated and is no longer in critical condition. Jiang Xuanye and I went to the police station together to give our statements. Whether in my past life or now, I have never been able to make out the killer's face. In my past life, at the press conference where Jiang Xuanye was announcing the arrest of the killer, I was reborn before the killer's identity was revealed. So, apart from the distinctive scent on the killer, I have no other leads. As they walked out of the police station, Jiang Xuanye couldn't help but ask, "How do you know someone was killed there?" "Intuition," I said, deliberately changing the subject. "Then how did you know there was a path behind the alley?" "I can smell blood." We both fell silent. After a moment, he broke the silence. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have doubted you." I scratched my head. It's only natural to be skeptical when you hear me say something like that out of the blue. The room fell silent once again. We walked side by side for a while before he spoke again. "Sun Yan, you're not quite what I expected." I paused for a moment and asked, half jokingly, "Is that for the better or for the worse?" But he remained silent and didn't answer. "If you don't say anything, I'll take that as a good sign." The night wind whistled, causing the fallen leaves to rustle. Finally, he looked up. "I'll take you home." News of a violent assault in the neighborhood spread quickly. The entire university town was in a state of panic. As I was leaving the lab building, I spotted a figure in a white dress in the distance. His footsteps came to an abrupt halt, and a chill crept up from the soles of his feet through his entire body. By GN. The first love Song Yong-kong can't stop thinking about. He was also the man with whom Song Yong-kong was embracing and kissing when I met a tragic end on the street in my previous life. Back then, in order to win Song Yong-kong's affection, I went out of my way to imitate by copying her every gesture and expression, as well as her style of dress. When she applied to medical school, I applied to the same school just to be closer to Song Yong-kong. Looking back on it now, it's both sad and ridiculous. I still remember how, when my spirit flew over to them, they were making love in the hotel room. She asked him, "Aren't you afraid your wife will find out?" She loves me to pieces. There's no way she'd find out. And even if she did, so what? That's true, even if she found out. She loves you so much that she'd surely forgive you with tears in her eyes. They exchanged a smile, full of mockery. Even though there was no longer a heartbeat, I felt a pain in my chest as if it were being torn apart. I screamed and wailed. But they couldn't hear me at all. Upon hearing of my death, Song Yong-kong only feigned grief for a moment, before the 7th day of my mourning period had even passed. He couldn't wait to move in with Bai Jian. He even gave up his job as a police officer for her. Sun Yen. A voice interrupted my thoughts as Bai Jian walked toward me. I heard you went to the KTV a few days ago for Song Yong-kong's party. I'm not surprised she knew about it. Deep down, she had always loved Song Yong-kong. Their breakup back then was merely the result of a fit of pique and pride. As his childhood friend and the sister who had always had a crush on him, I naturally became the focus of her attention. I didn't want to go into too much detail. He probably can't find anyone to be with, she said, clearly misunderstanding the situation and trying to prove something to me. Ever since we broke up, he's been texting me non-stop and even had people send me lots of letters. When a man gets this sentimental, there's just no dealing with him. I looked at her impassively. Is that so? Yeah. She did her best to hide the triumphant smile playing on her lips. I agonized over it for ages. But in the end, I decided to give him a chance. As he spoke, he pointed toward the school gate. We're meeting in the city center today. I frowned. Isn't today a day off? On non-holidays, police academy students are not allowed to leave the campus, she said smugly. As soon as he heard I'd relented, he immediately took a leave of absence from school. That look seemed to say that, in his heart, she was far more important to him than I was. I let out a cold laugh. That really is a remarkable love. Well, have fun. Then, just as I was about to turn and leave, Bai Jiren suddenly looked off into the distance. Yong-kong. I'm here. I turned around and locked eyes with Song Yong-kong. He clearly looked taken aback. He obviously hadn't expected me to be here. Ever since Jiang Xuanye and I left that day, Song Yong-kong has sent me a string of messages, asking about our relationship. But I haven't replied to any of them. In the end, I got so fed up with it that I just blocked them. When we met today, he clearly wanted to confront me about blocking him, but with Bai Jian present, he held back time and again before finally shifting his attention away from me. But from start to finish, I never seemed to care much. She didn't let Bai Jiren see the resentment she had expected. Nor did she let Song Yong-kong see the devotion I had always felt. They were all doing their best to hide the surprise in their eyes. I lifted my chin and turned to leave. That evening, I received a phone call. Is this Sun Yen? Who are you? The person on the other end sounded very emotional. I'm the mother of the girl you saved that day. Are you free tonight? I'd like to treat you to dinner to thank you in person. No need to thank me, it's just what I should do. If it's not convenient for you, I can come to your school. Would that work? The girl's mother couldn't refuse such a kind offer. But if she comes to school, everyone will inevitably find out that I use my sense of smell to save people. And by then, it will likely be difficult to use the same method to identify the killer. So I agreed to go, but added, actually, the rescue operation mainly depends on another friend of mine. His name is Jiang Xuanye. You should ask him first. If he goes, I'll go too. I'll go ask him. If he's willing to come, you have to come too. Okay. I hung up the phone and pouted. I really did give that lady a tough job. Since it wasn't a day off, Jiang Xuanye, a police academy student, couldn't leave the campus at all. Knowing him as I do, he wouldn't just take time off on a whim like Song Yong-kong. I was busy until late at night when my phone rang again. It's a text message. When I saw who the message was from, my heart skipped a beat. Captain Jiang, I'm at the entrance to your school. I slowly typed a question mark. And the other person replied instantly, leaving in 5 minutes. I jogged to the school gate and, from a distance, saw Jiang Xuanye standing under a streetlight. dressed in a black shirt and black pants, looking strong and tall. "Where are we going?" I asked, out of breath. He looked puzzled. "Didn't that girl's mother invite you over?" "I never said I would." He fell silent. I slowly came to my senses. "Did she tell you I'd be going too?" He nodded in agreement. I suddenly realized how surprisingly innocent he was, and couldn't resist teasing him. "So you took time off work just to come see me? Were you worried about me walking home alone at night?" He turned and walked away. I ran after him. "Hey, I was just kidding. Don't be mad." The banquet was held at a high-end restaurant, where the girl's mother, with tears in her eyes, expressed her gratitude to us. She had also prepared many expensive gifts, but Jiang Xuanye and I politely declined them all. After all, she had come to the banquet simply to fulfill her mother's wish. On the way back, Jiang Xuanye discussed the case with me. According to that woman, her daughter didn't have any enemies, so it's highly likely that the perpetrator acted at random. I nodded in agreement. He continued to speculate. "You said that the suspect came out of the alley that day, bumped into you, and walked in the opposite direction from us. Assuming he was the culprit and wanted to avoid the surveillance cameras, he had only two options. Either head to a more secluded area or to a crowded one. I remember there's a side entrance to your second campus in that direction." I was taken aback. "Are you saying he might be a student at our school?" "I wouldn't rule that out." We looked at each other simultaneously and saw the same thought reflected in each other's eyes. When we reached the entrance to the alley where the incident occurred, we followed the route the killer might have taken that night and headed toward the side gate of campus 2. Along the way, as long as you were careful to stay out of sight, you could easily evade the surveillance cameras and blend in with the students coming and going at the school gate. Jiang Xuanye and I pulled over to the side of the road, our expressions somber. If the suspect is indeed a student, the consequences would be unimaginable. I looked up, searching for the nearest security camera outside the school gate, but as I stepped back, I accidentally lost my footing and fell backward. A large hand rested firmly across my waist and gave me a gentle push forward. I fell into a strong embrace. A faint scent of sweat mixed with a strong pheromone filled my nostrils, and the tips of my ears instantly grew burning hot. I raised my hand to gently push him away when I heard a loud shout from behind me. "What are you guys doing?" Jiang Xuanye and I turned around at the same time. Song Yongkang was standing a short distance away, glaring at us with anger written all over his face. Behind him stood Bai Jian, his face ashen. The arm draped across my waist suddenly tightened. I instinctively looked up and heard Jiang Xuanye ask coldly, "What does that have to do with you?" Song Yongkang was clearly even angrier. "You Jiang guy. She's my little sister, we grew up together. Now you're getting handsy with her. What's that got to do with me? You're telling the little sister you grew up with that she's not allowed to date." When I heard this usually serious man say the word love, my heart skipped a beat. Song Yongkang was so furious his face was almost contorted. He rushed over and grabbed my wrist forcefully. "Come with me." But Jiang Xuanye easily tore it off. The two stared at each other, the tension thick in the air. Just then, Bai Jirun let out a cry of awe and collapsed to the ground. Song Yongkang snapped out of his daze and quickly turned around. "What's wrong?" Her eyes were red. "I accidentally twisted my ankle. I'll carry you to the hospital." "Okay." The absurd farce ended with Bai Jian slumped across Song Yongkang's back, glaring at me with malice. Once calm had returned, Jiang Xuanye let go. "Are you okay?" I shook my head. The air grew still once more. I really want to ask what he actually meant by that comment about dating just now, but after trying for a long time, I still couldn't bring myself to ask. This might just be a way for them to take it out on Song Yongkang because they don't like him. Bringing it up now would only make things more awkward. Jiang Xuanye suddenly spoke up. "Just now. I know you're doing this to help me. Thank you." He paused for a moment. "No, thanks." As time passed, the violent incident gradually faded from memory, and the campus returned to its former tranquility. Since we parted ways, Jiang Xuanye and I have stayed in touch. but our conversations have been limited to speculating about the case and discussing its progress. Now that we can finally communicate normally, I don't dare to be as bold and unrestrained as I used to be. After all, judging by his behavior in our past life, he prefers a relationship that grows slowly and naturally, without making a big fuss. At the same time, perhaps dissatisfied with my sudden change in behavior and attitude, Song Yong-kong suddenly broke with his usual habits, constantly switching phone numbers to contact me, and even went so far as to have someone deliver a letter of apology to me, but I treated all those things like trash and threw them all away. He probably doesn't realize that whenever he's been in touch with Bai Jiren lately, she's been flaunting it in front of me, so he's not really feeling remorseful or sincerely trying to apologize to Mei. He's just bitter that the lapdog's been for years has moved on. I put all that out of my mind and focused on building a relationship with Captain Jiang. At lunchtime, I went to the cafeteria to eat and happened to see Bai Jian again. Only this time, another boy was sitting next to her, attentively attending to her needs. I squinted, thinking the boy looked familiar. After thinking about it for a while, I finally managed to recall this person's name. Qiao Zhe, Bai Jiren's admirer from college. My memory of him is nothing more than a vague image. The only reason I remember his name is because he had the same name as one of my elementary school classmates. But I remember that in her previous life, Bai Jian didn't seem to give him a chance. So why is she having dinner with him now? But it wasn't my business anyway. So I just glanced at it and didn't pay it any further attention. I looked down and focused on eating, but Bai Jian saw me. She carried her tray over and deliberately sat down next to me. Sun Yan. What a coincidence. I gave a nervous laugh. Our school only has one cafeteria, that's quite a coincidence. At the same time, Xiaozhi came over and sat down as well. As he walked past me, my hand holding the chopsticks froze. It's that familiar taste. The scent of incense and fresh grass at the temple. It was almost impossible to detect amid the smells of the cafeteria food. But that taste is etched deep in my bones, and I will never forget it. I looked at the boy in front of me, trying to appear calm. He had slumped shoulders and wore glasses. His slightly long bangs covered his eyebrows, making it hard to read his expression. Yet I could sense his affection for Bai Jian. In the blink of an eye, I suddenly remembered the words the killer had said to me just before I died. "You're such a nuisance." I thought about everyone around me who might have said that to me, but what I never expected was that we had absolutely nothing in common. And the reason he found me a nuisance was simply that I was standing in the way of his goddess's freedom to pursue love. At that thought, a chill ran down my spine, and I felt a surge of anger welling up inside me. So just because my existence is getting in the way of those two, does that mean I have to vanish from this world? Why are you trembling? Bai Jian asked suddenly. I suddenly snapped out of it and realized my fingers had been trembling the whole time. Nothing. I lost my appetite, picked up my tray, and left. Bai Jian got up and ran after him. With Xiaozhi out of the picture, she instantly revealed her true colors. Sun Yan, don't think you're the only one who would resort to such tactics. I froze. What? Keep a backup. Make Yongkong jealous on purpose, and draw all his attention to me. So you gave Xiaozhi a chance just to make Song Yongkong jealous. That's right. I let out a cold laugh deep inside. Does she even realize what a stupid thing she's doing? To treat a murderer as a backup option, I can't believe she'd do that. Do you know what kind of person Xiaozhi is? She paused for a moment. What kind of person is he? What does that have to do with you? It's none of my business. I'm just giving you a friendly warning. Be careful not to get burned. To my surprise, she gave a cold laugh. Sun Yan, don't think I don't know what you're up to. You're just saying that to make me back down, aren't you? Don't worry if you're keeping a backup. So am I. The corners of my mouth turned down slightly. Please stop calling me a backup all the time. Jiang Xuanye and I have a clean, straightforward relationship, don't have the same dirty thoughts as you. After saying that, I glanced at Xiaozhi, who was looking this way, and turned to leave. You can't reason with a stubborn fool. Everyone has their own destiny. What happens to her has nothing to do with me. but I will certainly not let him escape the punishment he deserves. I took out my phone and sent a message to Jiang Xuanye. I think I've found the culprit. I met up with Jiang Xuanye at a coffee shop. It was the weekend, and the store was full of couples on dates. The coffee hadn't even arrived yet, and the couple at the next table was already making out. I felt completely awkward and couldn't sit still. Jiang Xuanye, however, acted as if he hadn't seen a thing and focused entirely on discussing the case with me. So you identified the killer just by the smell? Even though the scent was faint, I picked it up right away. But when the victim woke up, she didn't mention that the killer had a distinctive odor. Did you perhaps smell it wrong? I shook my head vigorously. Absolutely not. As soon as I finished speaking, everyone around me turned to look at me. Only then did I realize how loud my voice had become in my excitement. But there's no way I could have misremembered the scent I smelled before I died in my past life. But these days, relying solely on intuition without any evidence is indeed hard to accept. Jiang Xuanye stared intently at me. Just when I thought even he didn't believe it, he suddenly spoke up. Then let's look into Xiaozhe first. I was taken aback. You believe me? He said casually. Why wouldn't you believe me? I stared at him blankly, unable to say a word. So this is what it feels like to be trusted by others. In my previous life as Song Yongkong, I never experienced that. Just then, Jiang Xuanye suddenly grabbed my shoulder and turned me halfway around. I looked up in surprise and saw that the tips of his ears had turned red. I heard the sound of lips and tongues locking in a passionate kiss behind me, and suddenly I understood what he was doing. So, it turns out he really didn't see it just now. I asked deliberately, "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Is there something behind you that you don't want me to see?" "No. But I think I heard the sound of a kiss." Captain Zhang's ears turned even redder, and there was a hint of barely perceptible irritation in the way he looked at me. I didn't seem to notice, and I pressed my advantage. "Have you never been kissed before?" "As it turns out, it's best to know when to stop while you're ahead. It was a perfectly good date, but I ruined it by saying something stupid." Fortunately, Jiang Xuanye still remembered our agreement. So without any evidence, we began investigating Xiaozhe. While conducting my research, I was surprised to discover that Xiaozhe is actually a Buddhist. Apart from fawning over Baijin, he didn't have any particular hobbies. Whenever he had free time, he would sit on the lawn and zone out. These findings have me excited. This successfully explains why he smelled of incense and fresh grass. But taste alone isn't enough evidence. We need other supporting evidence as well. There is no biological evidence left at the scene, and the police don't have any surveillance footage. Reporting this to the police now would only tip them off. I had no choice but to watch him from a distance, hoping to pick up on any clues. But Bai Jian caught me in the act. She thought I was going to tell the other person what she really thought, so she tried desperately to stop me. "Sun Yan, don't think that just because you're telling Xiaozhe all sorts of nonsense, he'll change his feelings for me. He's much more devoted than you imagine." I found it completely baffling. Do you really think that by flirting with Xiaozhe like this, Song Yongkong will take an interest in you? She suddenly perked up. "Let me tell you, Yongkong cherishes me more than anything right now. Back then, you were so hypocritical, trying to convince me to see through Xiaozhe. Now I see it clear lies just the way Yongkong uses to make him cherish me even more. Sun Yan, you know these tricks better than anyone, don't you?" I really didn't expect that she thought I was deliberately trying to prevent her from keeping a backup option at the time. What I never expected was that this tactic would actually work on Song Yongkong. Ugh, isn't that just despicable? That said, Song Yongkong hasn't bothered me again lately. It seems his attention has been completely captured by Bai Jiren. I'm happy to have some peace and quiet. With that thought in mind, I looked at Bai Jiren with great sympathy. The men entangled with her, one a cold-blooded, ruthless murderer, the other a faithless man obsessed with one-upmanship. Truly pitiful. "What's with that look on your face?" Bai Jian asked. "It's okay. You look really nice today." With that, I turned and walked away. "You'd better watch out. The investigation into Xiaoxia is still ongoing. Every night, I discuss Jiang Xuanye's motives and movements with him over the phone, in search of any clues that might serve as evidence. It was another weekend, and Jiang Xuanye and I had arranged to meet at a coffee shop again. It started pouring outside, so I stepped out with an umbrella. But before I left school, I ran into Bai Jiren. She looked a little haggard, and just as I was about to ignore her, she came up to me on her own. Sun Yan. I stopped. What's up? She pursed her lips, looking hesitant. Did you know something about Xiaoxia before? I froze. What? After hesitating for a long time, she said, I saw Xiaoxia's diary. It seems like a diary. I jumped. If there's anything in there, wouldn't that serve as evidence? What diary? I asked. He drew a bunch of little figures and wrote kill, kill, kill all over them. My excitement gave way to a sense of cool detachment. Unless it consists of written text, it would be difficult to classify it as evidence. But this at least suggests that there are still many secrets about Xiaoxia that we don't know. Besides that, did you see anything else? No. All right then. I have something else to do. So I'll be going. Sun Yan. She called out to me again. Is there something you're keeping from me? I know we've had our differences, but you can't joke about matters of life and death. Let's put the past behind us and start fresh. Just tell me everything you know. I couldn't help but snicker to myself. Why should I just let bygones be bygones with you? And why should I tell you everything I know? Is it because you knew and did the same things in your past life? Or is it because your secret admirer killed me? Each rhetorical question felt like blood pouring into my heart, piercing every nerve. I didn't want to have anything to do with her anymore. So I turned and walked away. On my way to the meeting, I sent Jiang Xuanye a message. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Just as I sent that message, a pair of hands covered my mouth and nose, and within seconds I lost consciousness. When I woke up again, I found myself in an unfinished, abandoned building. His hands and feet were bound, his mouth was taped shut, and standing before him was a heavily armed man with only his eyes visible. But I recognized him as Xiaoxia the moment I saw him. What did you say to Bai Jiren? He asked. Realizing my mouth was still taped shut, he paused for a moment, then pulled out a sharp knife. If you dare make a sound, I'll stab you to death right away. The rain was pounding so loudly outside that even if I tried to shout, no one would hear me. With that, he tore off the tape. What do you mean? I asked, puzzled. Did you say bad things about Xiaoxia to her? At that point, he suddenly stopped short, as if realizing he had given himself away. Deciding to drop the pretense, he ripped off his mask and shouted at me, "You bitch! Did you go and badmouth me to her?" The tip of the knife pressed against my skin, and the nightmare of being stabbed to death in my past life suddenly came flooding back. I could barely breathe. My eyes filled with tears as I shook my head frantically. Then why did she suddenly start acting distant toward me? Lately, you're the only one who keeps staring at me. Tell me, did you find out something and tell her? In the blink of an eye, I came up with a solution. There's no way I'd say anything bad about you to Bai Jiren, because the boy I likes her. If she ends up with you, then I can be with that boy. You can ask around, everything I'm saying is true. His name is Song Yongkong. He's my childhood friend and older brother. And I've had a crush on him for years. I was so afraid he wouldn't believe me that I explained it frantically. As he spoke, he gradually calmed down. I know, Song Yongkang muttered. He was the one she loved most. So you should understand me, we're on the same side. If Song Yongkang ends up with me, then you can be with Bai Jian, right? After the initial panic subsided, I was surprisingly calm as I gently persuaded him. You should let me go now, and then we'll go break them up together. That remark seemed to strike a nerve with Xiaoxia. He suddenly stood up and ran outside. But he didn't let go of me. I froze for a couple of seconds, trying to break free from the ropes binding my hands and feet. I was afraid he hadn't gone far, so I didn't dare shout. but the rope was tied in a very unusual way. And no matter what I did, I couldn't break free. Just then, someone bumped into me from behind. I jumped in fright and got a clear look at the person's face. It was Jiang Xuanye. In an instant, the knot in my stomach suddenly loosened. It felt as though my life had found its place, and my eyes began to sting. "How did you find this place?" "We'll talk about it later," he said, bending down to untie the rope for me. Just then, footsteps could be heard outside once again. Jiang Xuanye exchanged a glance with me and hid behind the doorframe in front of me. I immediately understood what he meant. When Xiaozhe walked over, she tackled him from behind, but this time, Xiaozhe stood outside the door and didn't come in for a long time. Did he discover something? Just as my mind was racing, he spoke up. "I'm sorry. I can't let you go. If only I had talked things through with you before tying you up. We could have been allies. But now that I've kidnapped you and you know my secret, you might call the police to have me arrested once you get out. So I can't let you go." As he spoke, he held the dagger in his hand and walked toward me. Step by step, I looked at him in horror and shook my head frantically, trying to get his full attention. Just as he stepped through the doorway, Jiang Xuanye lunged at him from behind and pinned him hard to the ground. Using his size to his advantage, Jiang Xuanye pinned Xiaozhe to the ground and tried to wrestle the knife from him. Just then, Xiaozhe suddenly struggled. "Watch out," I shouted. The knife sliced across Jiang Xuanye's back and slid 10 meters away. Xiaozhe took advantage of his moment of pain to break free and run off. Jiang Xuanye cursed under his breath, ignoring the blood on the back of his hand as he picked up the dagger and cut through the ropes binding me. I tore off a piece of cloth to bandage his wound, then left the scene with him and called the police. Now, even if there was no evidence regarding the previous assault case, Xiaozhe would still be arrested by the police for kidnapping me. As we walked out of the abandoned building, I asked, "How did you find this place? You said it would take 10 minutes, but I waited 15. I went to look for you and found your phone on the way. So I knew you might have been kidnapped and that the culprit was most likely Xiaozhe. He doesn't have a place nearby or a car. So if he kidnapped an adult, his only option would be to drag them to that abandoned building nearby. That's why I came here. He's meticulous and well-organized, truly the right person to be a detective captain. Xiaozhe has run away. I hope he won't hurt anyone else. I contacted the police before I got here. He's probably already been arrested by now. However, just as we arrived at the nearest school clinic to have our wounds bandaged, we heard that someone was planning to jump off the building. We exchanged a glance and hurried over. The area below the school building was already crowded with students. I looked up and saw Xiaozhe standing on the top floor. Given that he was at the end of his rope, it's understandable that he would consider jumping off a building, but he was still dragging a shivering person along. I looked closely and realized it was Bai Jian. Xiaozhe kept shouting something. If you listened closely, it sounded like he was asking Bai Jiren to die with him. The police arrived shortly afterward, accompanied by Song Yongkong. After I explained the situation to the police, they began discussing a plan of action. One team would move in from the front to keep the suspect calm, while another team, working with firefighters, would look for an opportunity to rescue the hostages from the rear. Xiaozhe seemed to sense the police officer's intentions. As they drew closer, he pulled out a knife and pressed it against Bai Jiren's neck. No one expected him to have a knife. We had to change our plans at the last minute. Send for Song Yongkong, Xiaozhe shouted. With no other choice, the police had to call in Song Yongkong to help handle the situation. However, the latter was clearly reluctant and kept a very safe distance. Song Yongkong, Xiaozhe said, don't you love her very much? I'm giving you a chance right now. Come over here and be my hostage, and I'll let her go. Yongkong, help me. Bai Jian wept uncontrollably, but Song Yongkong acted as if he hadn't heard a thing. His face betrayed his fear of death, and he hesitated to move. The knife pressed against Bai Jian's neck dug in a little deeper. A trickle of blood was already visible, yet Song Yongkong still refused to act. Some of the people downstairs couldn't stand it anymore. Aren't you a police academy student? How can you lack even this much courage? Your girlfriend's life is in danger, or are you just going to stand by and watch? The police motioned for the crowd to be quiet. But deep down, everyone still felt resentful. Xiaozhe had clearly lost all patience. He grabbed Bai Jirun and moved closer to Song Yongkong. Step by step, the police officer motioned for Song Yongkong to calm Xiaozhe down first. But Bai Jian had clearly reached her limit. She wept bitterly. Yongkong, don't you love me? Why do you turn a blind eye to whether I live or die? Why won't you even say a single word to comfort me? Song Yongkong remained silent. Just then, something happened that no one had expected. Bai Jian suddenly broke free from Xiaozhe and jumped off the rooftop. After seeing the goddess fall from the building, Xiaozhe went berserk, grabbed a knife, and charged at Song Yongkong. With a dull thud, screams rang out one after another. Jiang Xuanye covered my eyes. Because he was shielded by debris, Bai Jian did not die. However, a fall from a height left her with a spinal cord injury, and she has been confined to a wheelchair for the rest of her life. Song Yongkong was stabbed multiple times, each blow proving fatal, and ultimately could not be saved. When I heard the news of his death, it all felt so unreal. When I saw him cheating in my past life, I wished he would die right then and there. But now that it's actually happened, it doesn't feel as satisfying as I imagined. Xiaozhe faces the death penalty for multiple charges, including robbery, murder, and kidnapping. The wound on Jiang Xuanye's back is almost healed, so I went with him to the hospital to have his stitches removed. As I sat waiting in the lobby, sunlight streamed in at an angle through the window, casting a glow on his profile. For a moment, it felt as though I had been transported back to a past life, chatting with him in the hospital. At the time, I never imagined that letting this man slip through my fingers would be the greatest regret of my life. So I blurted out without thinking, Jiang Xuanye. He turned his head to look. The face bathed in sunlight matched the one in his memory. Do you remember what I said to you when we first met? He fell silent. Just as I was about to repeat myself, he suddenly spoke up. I'm here to confess my feelings to you. I laughed. That's right. No, I'm not just repeating what you said. This is what I want to say to you, he said slowly, enunciating each word. Sun Yan, I'm here to confess my feelings to you. Suddenly, I couldn't say a word, and my cheeks felt incredibly hot. It's hard to believe that this man, who's always been so serious and stuffy, would say something like that. Just as I was at a loss, he slowly approached me and smiled, his stern features softening. Will you accept my confession? Tool do it. He suddenly reached out and pulled me into his arms, then whispered in my ear. You asked me the other day if I'd ever been kissed. My ears were tingling, and my cheeks felt like they were about to burst. But he deliberately exhaled. The answer is no. So, do you want to give it a try with me? I couldn't take it anymore. So I buried my face in his chest and pounded my fists against his chest. He smiled and clasped my hand. All right, I'll stop teasing you. There'll be plenty of other chances. After my stitches were removed, Jiang Xuanye and I walked home as the sun set. He walked beside me, his arm gently around my waist, and suddenly asked, why did you climb over the wall to get into our school back then? To confess my feelings to you. What a coincidence that you ran into me. Yeah, it's just that kind of coincidence. We smiled at each other and, as the sun set, kissed. In this life, my wish has finally come true.